Hello, hello, hello! Welcome back. It is Wednesday, the 11th of what month is this? 11th of February. And today we're going to be doing a bit of electromagnetism. Hope you guys have been doing okay. I know on my side, I'm very much enjoying this new relationship I've got with this neighborhood cat who's like adopted me. And we've got to the rather tragic point where I think it would genuinely rather like spend all of its time here. Like it comes at like 10 a.m., chills out on my sofas, and he's only just left, and only because I refuse to feed him. Because like I think an owner should know how much food the cat's being fed and all. So I'm like, if the cat's getting fed here, well, after I move, it's going to expect food, and that's a whole situation. So I've literally just now had to like dismiss it because it was like clawing at me and just like meowing and like, I want food. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I would if I could, but I can't. So that's how I'm doing. Hope you guys are doing okay. I know we're getting into the period of like half term next week. We're kind of wrapping up a lot of the stuff in terms of the syllabus and then getting ready for the sort of big summer cycle exam haul. And I know I'm feeling that, which is why I'm going to be doing half term and then taking the week after that off. So little parish notices next week. In fair, actually, I haven't even established when I will be streaming next week, but I will still do 2 streams. I like where I've settled, where I do 1 stream of like a math paper live solve, because I think math is best demonstrated because it's so skills based. And then an evening stream where I do teaching physics, because I think physics is my favorite to teach and math is my favorite to do. So I'll definitely keep that up, but I will not know until a bit later what my schedule for next week is. So keep posted on when the lives populate. And I have promised, and I intend to keep this promise, that I will set myself up with a Discord server to enable me to let people know in advance when I'm going to go live. So today we're going to be going through, I've called it just general electromagnetism because I don't know exactly how much I'm going to get through, but I'm planning on doing both the left-hand rule and the motor effect and everything to do with that. And then if we have enough time after the practice example questions, then I'll be moving on to electromagnetic induction, because a bunch of my students are bringing that up. It seems to be the time of year that it gets introduced. And so it seems to be something that I'm like, other people might be into at the same time as well. So I won't waste too much time. Let's kind of get into the main body of the work here as we wait for people to join. Let me get Miro shared, and then I'll kind of get into it. So when we're talking about magnetic fields, we're going to start with current carrying wires. So what you know from GCSE, if we have, let's say, North Pole, South Pole, we know there's going to be a uniform magnetic field in between. Let's say we have a wire carrying current in that magnetic field. What you know from GCSE is that that wire will experience a force. And the reason why it experiences a force is because when you have current moving in a conductor, that creates a magnetic field around it. You have your magnetic field. So if the current is moving up, you can use your right-hand grip rule. So if your thumb is pointing in the direction of the current, your fingers wrapping around will give the direction of the magnetic field wrapping around the wire. So in this case, the wire's magnetic field would be doing something like this. So what you know from GCSE is that the current carrying conductor has a magnetic field around it, and that magnetic field will interact with this external magnetic field, creating a force, causing the wire to move. I've had some people ask me why it does that and how you can predict in which direction it will move, and kind of understanding the left-hand rule just that little bit deeper. So I'll take the time now to kind of explain that. So let's say we've got, well, in fact, no, let's do what we know from GCSE. So you know from GCSE, right? Left-hand rule, the thumb is going to be the force that the wire feels. The first finger is going to be the magnetic field, which goes from north to south. And the middle finger represents the current. Oh, hello, hello. Oh, just wanted to say you got your ESAT results. Oh, is it ESAT results day? Very happy that you're happy with the results. That 5.8 is pretty good. ESAT and TMUA day. Oh, I'm interested. I should have clocked that. I should have put that in the title. People can, yeah, drop it and let me know how you did. I'm interested. 5.8 in Math 1 is really good because Math 1 I know is one that can be really dodgy. People can like find that like that can go really, really sideways really quickly. So yeah, pleased with that. So hopefully you get what you're looking for. Presuming that might be an Imperial interview or Imperial offer. I thought you did better in Math too. That's just the way of it, isn't it? Like so it's all graded on a curve, so you never fully know. But yeah, I mean, you just never know with these things. Never know. So you go in, you do your best, you accept the results, and yeah. The Imperial interview is a 4.2 cutoff. Nice, well over the line on that one. Oh, do you know what? What we're doing? I should always when I get into the chat, I should stop sharing screen. Hi Patrick, may I ask you a question? It's completely off topic. Why not? But I'm self-studying further math A level and have a tutor, and I'm having some complications with them, and I'm not sure what to do. Depends on the complications. If the complication is something scheduling, see if you can work something out. Let me think. Obviously, you don't have to go into details. What would I advise here? I mean, let's be real. You're not married to them, right? There's no like contractual obligation. If you're not happy, you can go shopping around, usually with different agencies. Like, what's the nature of the complication? It's more so how they teach. If it's, let me put it this way. You're not going into tutoring to validate the tutor and their teaching style. If the tutor style, but my style doesn't work for everyone. Like tutoring is a very personal fit. You're looking for one-on-one tuition. And so if the fit isn't right, you have every right to say, hey, look, I'm looking for something else. Depending on where you found them, it can be a bit tricky if it's like, you know, a friend of a friend who kind of comes in and you kind of feel like there's a bit of an awkward thing if you can't sort of stick with it, and also it makes it harder to find someone else. Bye bye XBXY. But I would say you like fundamentally, if you've got a tutor, you're like giving money for a one-on-one service. If it's not working for you, you have every right to sort of go in a different direction. And don't feel bad about them because they will absolutely, as we move into exam season, that's when things get really busy anyway. They will be able to find work. So it's really no skin off their back. I would say definitely shop around. Shop around. But in the meantime, let me pop back in. Because apologies for people watching on repeat, but I very much prioritize people in chat. All right. So coming back into it, there will be timestamps. I apologize I haven't timestamped my last live solve, but I absolutely will. And of course, if you have further questions, feel free to pop them in chat and I'll make sure to get around to them. Quick little extra in the chat. Do you think the discrete section in further math is needed for Phys Natsky? No. I have literally never studied decision math in my life. Which is a bit tricky because then obviously I've got people who do further math who are students who sometimes go, can you help? And I go, no. But also people very rarely ask me for discrete because it's so algorithmic. I can imagine it would be very helpful if you're going for the Komsky stream, but for anything else, no, not that helpful. Okay, so reading more about this tutoring situation. They give you mock and tests, etc., but I don't like their teaching. Yeah, it can be really tricky. So if they have access to particular resources that are good, if they can analyze your exam technique or give you mock exams, that's one thing. It's just up to you to determine whether it's worth it for what they're offering. Like, I don't know the rates. I don't know anything else like that. like it can be really tricky. I would say discuss with your parents whether as well, because you usually typically they would be the bill payer. Have this conversation with them about like what the pros and the cons are of this particular tutor, and whether you might benefit from someone with a different teaching style. Like really no pressure to stick with it. Like it's completely fine. Right. So getting back into it. You are very, very welcome. And feel free to ask any question at any time, and I'm happy to help. So getting back into this is really interesting. Recapping. So we know that if we have a current moving in a wire in a magnetic field, it's going to experience a force. Fleming's left-hand rule, the thumb is the direction of the force. The first finger is the direction of the magnetic field. The middle finger is the direction of the current. The first finger in this case is going to be pointing to the right because magnetic field lines go from north to south. The current, the force, sorry, no. So what I'm going to do is I start with my first finger and then I just like spin my whole hand around until the current is pointing in the correct direction. So in this case, there you go. So how do I get out of the way? No, it's flipped, it's reversed. I can't work it out. There we go. So the current is moving up. The magnetic field is moving to the, I'm gonna have to work this out. Guys, left-hand rule is hard to demonstrate. Can you see it? I don't know. But the point is, if you do this correctly, you should have your first finger, your middle finger pointed up, your first finger pointed right, which means that the force will be felt into the plane of the paper. And I can demonstrate that if I kind of rotate this whole diagram. Let's see with these magnetic field lines why that would be the case. So let's rotate things around. Let's say I have North Pole there, South Pole there, and I'm going to have a wire carrying current into the plane of the paper. So in that particular case, I know that the field lines go, I'm going to show a before and after, right? So we've got these field lines that are going like this, going from north to south. And from the right-hand grip rule, if I have my current going into the plane of the paper, I'm going to have a magnetic field acting in concentric circles going sort of clockwise, like this. Now, what happens is these magnetic field lines can be considered vectors, and they have vector addition. So what's going to happen when they interact is that here, when the magnetic field lines are going up, those are going to cancel with these external magnetic field lines going down, and these ones here are going to reinforce. So what it means is you get this kind of situation where the field lines look like they're bending around, where they are denser. In fact, let me draw this a little bit better. Where they're denser around the thing. And they basically don't exist on the other side. So you can see here where the magnetic field line was going right. That's why you get the sort of rightward motion of this field line as it bends around the wire. And similarly here on the bottom, this leftward motion as it bends to the left. These have canceled out, so there's no magnetic field lines here. These have reinforced, so you get loads of magnetic field lines there. And what you get is the magnetic field lines effectively want to spring back. And so this wire is going to experience a force to the left to sort of make the external magnetic field lines spring back to where they were. Seeing some action in the chat. Used your video for the ESAT and got a 5.3 average. Go for that. Well done, man. What are the job prospects for Phys NatSci since you're a graduate yourself? Great. They are good. Have you ever struggled finding a job personally? I've struggled. My biggest struggle has been, let's start this chat. Actually, this is good. So let's talk about career prospects when you go for Phys NatSci, sort of, especially Cambridge Phys NatSci. You have a load of options. So I have tried so many different things in my career. I initially thought I was going to go down the research path, be a professor. So I was going to be like, from the age of 5, I was like, I'm going to be a PhD. Until I actually tried research science and hated every single second of it, like every second of it, and realized that that's just not going to happen. I then did an internship. My specialty was material science, which is very close to engineering. So I thought, okay, maybe I don't like the theory. Maybe I prefer industry, putting the material science into practice. So I got an internship with Rolls-Royce up in Derby. Similarly hated that, not for me. Then one of my friends who was on my course, who did a 3-year instead of a 4-year, so he left a year before I did. He got a job at a big bank, and then he just sort of like snuck me in the back door at the big bank, not doing the banking side, doing like a middle office, like really 9 to 5 simple job, which I did not enjoy either, but that was almost by design. Like I needed to sort of sit down, have a job I could afford to fail while I worked out what I actually wanted. Got a job, like a couple of tech startups along the way as well, and then found my way into sort of like tutoring, sort of build up. Like it's and people go into all sorts. Like you can go into engineering. You can go. A big thing is patent law, by the way. A lot of people think patent law, you need to be a lawyer. No, you need to be a scientist because you need to be able to understand the science of the patents you're trying to file. Lots of people go into finance. Like I say, management consulting is a big one. Just really like you have a lot of options, which was very helpful for me because I felt very constrained. Like, oh, I have to go into science, and then I realized, no, the world is still open to me. I can afford to pivot. Your teacher did an internship at Rolls-Royce, graduating from Cambridge as well. Well, there you go. How hard is it? Oh, follow-up question. How hard is it to get a job in academia, specifically physics? Very. So the thing with academia is very, very, very unstable until suddenly it's stable. So you get your PhD, and then you have to do various postdocs, which are kind of like 1-year contracts at a time. And as soon as the next one ends, you don't necessarily know that you've got another job waiting for you on the other side. You could end up jumping around a bunch of different universities until eventually you get to a point where you have like a lab group of your own. That is famously cutthroat, competitive, political, awful. A lot of people bail at that stage. In fact, one of my friends did a postdoc in chemistry in Japan and hated his supervisor so much that he just went, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So it can be really tricky. How much different is the Imperial interview compared to the Oxford engineering? Hugely. So Oxford engineering is much more like what I did with the interview series. They ask a bunch of very, very technical questions of everyone. It's not so personal statement based. But from what I gather, Imperial is much more personal statement based. So being able to talk about anything in your personal statement and being able to describe any project you've done in very good detail. Those are both very important. I have a couple of students who got into Imperial through the October cycle this year, and they said it was very, almost weirdly informal, like they over-prepared. I do recommend over-preparing just in case. From what I gather, actually, the materials process seems to be more complicated than the engineering process. But yeah, the engineering, he found it much more relaxed than the Cambridge interview. So I would not stress about it too much, but do make sure you're prepared to defend anything in your personal statement if you need to. But definitely not as intense. Someone didn't get in with an 88 on the PAT. Wow. So really need to fix up on my interview skills. So does that imply you... I'm curious, was that last year and this is you going for it again, or was that this year in the October cycle? I'm curious to find out what your interview process was, like what kind of questions you got asked. Because from what I understand, we can see, so this year, was I correct? Because again, I had some students who say it was much less formal than the, who said it was much less formal than the Oxbridge one. Am I right that it was much more sort of like, oh, why do you want to go to Imperial? Why do you want to do engineering? Tell me about this project. Like that seems to be the vibe. So just be prepared more for those sorts of things. Although 88 on the PAT is wild. And this is the other thing, by the way, as well. You got to remember that a lot of people applying to Imperial are applying with like 4 A stars, and they have all the extracurriculars, and very, very high. They can't take all the very high caliber candidates. And so a lot of very deserving people do get rejections. And so I wouldn't take it too personally. Oh, they didn't give it to you because you don't do further math and the interview wasn't good. Okay. For EEE, 90% of people who get an interview get in. Is that true? That feels high. That feels really high. Predicted matter less. You check the stats. Damn. Wow. So they screen a lot beforehand. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, the interview process for Imperial is just like, it's a little bit, I know the Oxbridge process. The Imperial one's slightly more black box for me. Without the further math, that might make sense. I think one thing they look for in these interviews as well, especially for engineering and material science, where they tend to do a lot of like team projects, like is that sort of interpersonality, ability to work with a team and collaborate. So maybe the vibe was just off in the interview. I wouldn't sweat it though, as long as you're going to a university that you're proud of. Remember that the plan B is to come top third of wherever you go, because getting a first from a Russell Group university always looks good regardless of where it is. And if you're the type of student who's getting these A stars, who's at the level where you're applying to Imperial, I imagine wherever you're not ending up somewhere bad, right? So just focus on achieving good balance and trying to come up high up in your year as you can. You can get extra like credentials, like, oh, you can come top of your year in something and win certain prizes and just make your CV pop. And that's how you get like people, you're not set back by this. This is just like how you're going to get there is going to be a little bit different. Yeah, so I really wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it. Wherever you go, the door is always open to you. Someone said you got your interview invite. So yeah, now that the ESAT and the TMUA is coming out, there's a lot of people getting the interviews for the next round of the Imperial stuff. So good luck to everyone there. Just remember, put your best foot forward, be presentable, be engaging, know why you want to go to Imperial, know why you want to do engineering, be able to defend anything in the personal statement. You're probably not cooked. You are as cooked as everyone else is, so do not worry. I'm contextual. What does that mean? Oh, tips helps a lot. You're very welcome for the tips. I still use the ESAT. The ESAT's just hard, like really hard. And like I think it always goes to show as well, like it's just not suited for everyone's learning style. And so if your university is screening you out because of that, maybe it's not somewhere you would have enjoyed being anyway. Maybe you dodged a bullet. And again, wherever you end up, try and come as high as you can. Okay. So I am very much at this rate only going to be getting through the motor effect. So I will update the title of the stream after the fact, and then I'll cover electromagnetic induction another time. I am, as you can tell, when chat is active, I love it. So feel free to keep dropping the questions in. I will keep answering them. And in the meantime, I'm still going to try my absolute best to get through this content, but I just don't like ignoring you guys while you're here. It's rude. Okay. So now that I've explained, because this I do find really interesting. I think this is often not taught in schools very well. The reason why the motor effect works in terms of warping these magnetic field lines. So hopefully you guys find that an interesting little extra. Now, going over what you know as well. Have I got a Discord? Not yet. That is literally on my to-do list for this week so that I can let people know when I'm going live and people can drop suggestions about streams they want to see. One of my students has set up a Discord server for me. I just need to get a Discord account so I can be added as an admin and start doing stuff. I don't have a username yet because I have not yet set up my own account yet, but I am definitely going to do this. Enough people have asked me for this that it's like, okay, guys, you see, ask and you shall receive on that. Initially, I was a bit like, "Ooh, I don't know what is this? What is this Discord?" Sort of getting my old man glasses out, but no, it seems to be legit. Yeah. some random auto-generated AI slop nonsense. God, could you imagine? That would be mortifying. Me in my 30s, like, oh, I'm just a little gamer kid. No, that would be so try hard. I'm not gonna do that. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. So Right. So now going through this, F equals BIL. Oh, that wasn't even for me, the whole Discord chat. Well, yeah, screw it. I'm getting there anyway. So this equation, F equals BIL, is for current carrying wire. So if we've seen that before. If you want to calculate the force on the current carrying wire in a magnetic field, this is the equation to use. So by knowing that B is the magnetic field strength, this is measured in Teslas, I is the current measured in amps, and length is the length of the wire in the magnetic field measured in meters, and the force is obviously in newtons. And so this is the A-level addition or the IB addition, allowing you to calculate the magnitude of that force and not just the direction. We can then talk about, again, something you're kind of familiar with from GCSE. Hold on. Try to use an alternative. All right, so talking about different teaching styles, I think this is always very useful. In regard to a tutor situation, it feels like when I try to use an alternative method, they just disregard it. And it feels like whenever I ask questions, the majority of them feel stupid, but it feels like when I ask my teachers at school, they aren't. That can be, again, yeah, that's not great, given that a tutoring situation is meant to sort of really empower you and make you feel like you've got this. I think I definitely sometimes disregard alternative methods if they're, so sometimes it can be accurate, but sort of not elegant, or it can be a workaround that misses the main point of the question. And sometimes I will insist on kind of going back and taking the main route just to make sure you have that solution path in your arsenal in case you get asked a different question that requires it. But you should never be feeling stupid. I'm sure I do make some of my students feel stupid, though. Honestly, it just sounds like it doesn't work for you. And if the vibe isn't right, you don't need an excuse. You can just say the vibe's not right and find someone else. But yeah, that doesn't sound like it's going the way it should go. Not try to approach it. You can just say, well, also, to be honest, no, you're probably at the age where you don't want your parents fighting this battle for you. But I think what you're saying is it's awkward telling a tutor you don't want to work with them anymore, because it's awkward to tell a tutor you don't want to work with them anymore. It feels very personal. But like I say, like, yeah. Okay, you got two options. Option one, tell the truth. And you say, well, yeah, it feels awkward. So option two is lie. Option two is lie. You can say, I found someone and the vibe is really good and my budget won't stretch to have two, so I'm going to swap to them. Or you can say, okay, I kind of feel like I've learned most of the syllabus now and I feel able to go on my own in the preparation towards the end. Something like but also you don't need to give them an excuse. Like, you really don't need to give them an excuse. I know it can feel very awkward, especially if this is your first time in this kind of interaction, but you're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. And I guarantee you will not remember this in a year's time. Like, you just won't. You'll move on. Yeah. People drop out all the time for all sorts of reasons. Oh, that's a good one. Just say you're feeling a little overwhelmed with everything, would like to stop sessions for now. People do that on me all the time. And then never message back. Yeah, totally. That's boom. Because also that sort of says, don't ask me any follow-up questions. I'm not I'm not sort of here for that. Okay. Always here to help chat. Now, back to it. I want to discuss the motor effect as it pertains to the sort of coil. So this is a classic situation. There's lots of things to talk about. including the split ring commutator. So the way this works, if that's, positive attached to the negative, in this particular case, you've got your north-south poles of the magnet. We know the current is moving around the coil in this direction. So using, again, the left-hand rule, the field is moving from north to south, so it's moving to the right. In this direction, on the right-hand side of the coil, the force is being felt kind of out of the plane of the paper. And on this side, the force is being felt into the plane of the paper. Now, importantly, so they like this sort of full explanation, because there is current moving in a wire, that generates a magnetic field. That magnetic field interacts with the external magnetic field, creating a force. By Fleming's left-hand rule, the force is in opposite directions on opposite sides of the coil. That creates a torque, which causes it to move. Now, if I kind of show you with my thumbs, because a lot of people don't understand the split ring commutator, if I have one force acting down, one force acting up, those are going to shift around. But then once I get there, it gets stuck. The only way to keep it moving is to have that flip round, so that then this down arrow makes it back to the bottom again, and then it has to flip round to keep going. So anything on this side of my face, look, the arrow always has to be down, so it has to flip. And that is the purpose of the split ring commutator, is to reverse the direction of current every half turn so that it can keep moving. And that is important to be able to explain. Okay. I will also say, Edward, if you already have your predicted grade, you already have your predicted grade. You have a school that doesn't offer further math. That's tragic. That's bad. Like I say, though, you always have the option. You always have the option to find a different tutor and then use all of the correspondence. Like, you will have the predicted grades, you'll have the work you've done, you'll have your marked tests. You can always just transfer across. And if you've basically done your learning, I'm not sure this. Be supported. I would say, like, maybe don't quit your current tutor until you have someone to swap to. See what you can find. Shop around, though. But maybe have the support just in case. So I imagine you're doing something like sitting the exam in an exam center as well. So that's the explanation for that. No, honestly, like, really, this is what I'm here for. I'm like, this is the whole point, is I just sort of come live and I'm like, hey, let me just tutor the internet. And if that's what this is legit. This is how sessions go. Sometimes the student will come in and be like, hey, I need to chat about this other thing. I'm like, great, let's chat about the other thing. Let's make sure you're supported as you need to be supported. So do not feel guilty about asking questions that take the time that I'm voluntarily giving you. Your school's exam center, so that's fine. So that seems like a suitable thing. Like, and also bear in mind, the issues that you're having, you will not be the only one having these issues. At some point, someone may watch this who has exactly the same situation, where their school doesn't offer further math, so they're taking further math externally, and so we're somewhat dependent on the tutor, but don't like the tutor's style. And so, yeah, shop around. Maybe don't move, and like, keep the support until you find a better tutor that works for you, that's better for, like, also specifically for homeschooling, which is usually a different thing. Like, I'm very good at the tutoring side, like the teaching side. I'm not very good at, like, the lesson planning and the setting the homework and the marking stuff. Like, that's not my vibe. So different tutors will just be good at different things. You have every right to shop around and find a good personal fit. Cool. Now, let's talk about charges in a magnetic field, which is new for the IB and A-level syllabus. Obviously, new for you in terms of, like, it's new material, not new as in the syllabus is changed. So if we have a charged particle moving in a magnetic field, remembering that current is the rate of flow of charge, that means that you have a current moving in a at right angles to a magnetic field. which means it's going to experience a force. So if we have, for instance, a proton moving to the right, remembering that current is the flow of positive charge, if the proton, which is positive, is moving to the right, that means the current is moving to the right. So using Fleming's left-hand rule, magnetic field into the plane of the paper. I have drawn this entirely wrong, but it will deflect, it'll experience a force acting upwards. And because the proton is moving in the plane of the paper, the motion of the proton is always at right angles to the magnetic field. So the force will always be at right angles to the motion, which means it's centripetal. It will form a circle. One thing to note, so this is where things tie in with circular motion. So it will deflect upwards. How do I do this? Dragon, can I? Whoop. Close enough. Let's see if I can reconnect this. Cool. So what's going to happen is it's going to curve up. And at every single point, the force is going to be perpendicular to the motion. And so you will get this circular motion. Really important to... No, I'll keep going on this for now. So the very, very common question is to derive the radius of curvature. And this comes from saying that the centripetal force, which is mv squared over r, is equal to bqv, which is the force on a charged particle moving in a magnetic field. So if we rearrange this, we can divide both sides by v and rearrange to make r the subject, and we get mv over bq is equal to r. Why does it curve up in the first place? It curves up in the first place because of that force. So we have the magnetic field acting into the plane of the paper. Current is acting right, so it experiences a force up. That force will deflect it vertically upwards. And that force, you can see, if I rotate my first finger, how am I going to do this? Right. There. If I rotate it, you can see my thumb and my middle finger are always at right angles. So as the motion changes, the force changes, and it's always at right angles, which means that force is always acting towards the center of the circle. So the magnetic field is why it gets deflected upwards. And then you can get this, which is the radius of curvature. This, by the way, we can talk about applications of this. There are a couple. One I want to talk about is the mass spectrometer, because there's a few interesting things to talk about there, mainly because the B is something you set yourself. That is the external magnetic field strength. The V we will talk about, that is something you can set yourself. But then what this can, if you measure the radius of curvature, you are able to get this quantity, m over q, which is, how do I explain this? So we can rewrite this. So if r is equal to mv over bq, we can consider that to be v over b times m over q, which I can also rewrite as it's v over b times the reciprocal of q over m. Now, the reason why I would choose to write it in this weird way is because this q over m is called the specific charge. As you know, specific in physics means per kilogram. So this is the specific charge. And so by finding the radius of curvature, you are able to work out this specific charge, which is exactly what a mass spectrometer does. So the way the mass spec works is it sends ions into a magnetic field. All of the ions have exactly the same speed, and they move in the same magnetic field. So B and V are controlled. And what they then do is they curve onto a detector. And by establishing what this radius of curvature is, so obviously where that lands is actually going to be 2r. So we can call that R1, we can call this 2R2. this will be the radius of curvature that you find. And from that, you can work out the charge to mass ratio. So Q, that is so illiterate. So if we rearrange for the charge to mass ratio, we find it is V over BR. So by knowing the speed and by setting the magnetic field and by measuring R, you can work out this Q over M. And assuming singly charged ions, that allows you to work out the mass of the ion, which is the whole point of that spectrometer, is to work out the masses of different ions that you put in. Some other things to note, another application, this is more for AQA physics, is the Ds for your cyclotron. The way that the Ds work is you have a source of protons in the middle, and we have these Ds. Oh, hang on a minute. Do you think putting up with a tutor because of the mock exams and the topic tests would be a good idea? I think that's why you shouldn't drop them without having someone else to move to, certainly. And just using alternative methods in my own time, e.g. not in sessions, but in mocks. You could use them for that respect. You could, if you wanted to, do a bit of self-teaching so that you don't feel like you're learning from them. But like I say, some tutors are just bad teachers, right? So if you teach yourself, then you get yourself up to a certain speed, you can then go to them and they'll correct. I will often get frustrated with students for not already knowing things, but only because I expect them to already know the thing from a teacher. And so it may be that your tutor is defaulting to that and going, oh God, why doesn't this person already know the thing? And it's like, oh wait, because I haven't taught them yet. And then you just might be forgetting that. It's really up to you in your situation whether you think it's worth like a waste of the time and the money. I like having the support could be a good thing. Using some online resources to maybe loosen the jam jar so you feel like you're like prepped going into a session might be something worth doing. Yeah, it's really hard to know without knowing like the specifics. Only you are going to be able to work out the balance for your specific scenario. So what I'm going to do is instead just like give you all the options so you can make the best choice for yourself. Yeah. So yeah, tutors are just bad teachers. Can confirm I could never. Someone asks, what uni level books do you recommend at this stage to help tackle imposter syndrome? First of all, I would say don't have imposter syndrome because students, like the point is not where you start, the point is where you finish, right? The point, you're going in not knowing something and it's their job to teach you. So I wouldn't. But if you really want for peace of mind to read something, I would say on the Cambridge reading list, I tried picking up the materials book. It was so dull. I wasn't interested in earth science. I didn't like the physics one, but the chemistry one was gold dust. The book Why Chemical Reactions Happen by Peter Wuthers and what was the other guy? That book is phenomenal. So I do actually highly recommend you read that one if you're planning on doing anything with chemistry at Cambridge. Going back to the Ds. So these Ds they are attached to an alternating current or an AC supply, which means they swap around. So let's say this starts with positive and that's negative. The protons will be repelled from the positive and attracted towards the negative, so they will go here. They have been accelerated, which means they now enter. And by the way, these Ds have a magnetic field in them as well. So what's going to happen? Oh no, did I shoot myself in the foot? No, it's fine. I can just arbitrarily do it this way. So by Fleming's left-hand rule, this means it's going to curve round to here. And then once it gets here, it's timed so that then flips round. So that by the time it's moved through the D, the alternating current is swapped around the polarity, which means that the protons are now accelerated across the gap. They are accelerated towards the negative, away from the positive, so they have gained speed. because they have gained speed, remembering that r equals mv over bq, that means the radius increases. And then once again, the polarity flips. I have the opportunity to say, reverse the polarity. So I'm going to say that because sci-fi, and I have fun here. Nope, that's not. These are protons. What am I doing? Stop doing wrongness. So then they will be attracted to the negative. They will accelerate across, and they will go a bigger radius again. And so they'll keep going around until eventually they get fired out with a set speed. Once the radius has reached a set point, you know they have been fired out with a set speed. And so that's how you accelerate them and shoot them out in a given direction with a desired speed. So that's quite cool. Another thing I want to talk about while we're here is the fact that these all move through with the same, because this is an alternating power supply, right? So it has a set time period where it's going to flip around. This is quite interesting and, again, not very well taught. So let me just get into this. Let's work out the time period it takes to move through here. Aren't these the mechanisms used in analog clocks? I do not have that knowledge off the top of my head. Analog clocks, I thought there's like if you're talking about like I think you get like nuclear clocks or like atomic clocks, they called. I don't think this is atomic clocks. I think that relies on radioactive decay. Sorry, no good here. But I can guarantee you're not going to get asked in an exam, so at least there's no stakes on that knowledge. Either my left hand is broken or my left thumb has somehow grown in the wrong direction because I can't seem to find the force vector. Okay, so so in this case, let's take the initial situation where the positive charge is moving to the right, and the magnetic field is acting into the plane of the paper, which means that when the proton is moving to the right, the force is felt upwards, which is why it deflects upwards, and then it curves round as it deflects. And then once it's moving here, similarly, the force is felt downwards, and so it will deflect round. Because it's moving in the plane of the paper, that force will always be perpendicular to the motion, so that's why it curves round in a circle. So for a positive charge moving right, and for the field acting into the plane of the paper, force is felt vertically, it will deflect upwards, and then it just keeps going. So here, this is circular motion. So we know that the speed is equal to 2 pi r over the time period. So that's the distance moved is 2 pi r, the circumference of the circle in time period t. So the time period is 2 pi r over v. But from here, we know that r over v is equal to m over b q. And if we plug that in, it's 2 pi m over b q. Now, because it is still a proton, so the charge to mass ratio is fixed, and because this is a fixed magnetic field, it means there's a fixed time period. So it doesn't matter whether it's this small part here in the middle or the really big part around the outside. It still takes exactly the same length of time to make it round the D, which is why the fixed alternating AC supply is perfect to keep this moving around the way it is. And I just think that's very interesting and not often tested. So helpful there in case you sort of have always wondered how that worked. And what I also want to talk about is two more things, because then I have a session at 6:30 I got to get to. The first thing is they really like to balance this with electric fields. So let's consider this situation. In fact, I can kill two birds with one stone here. So let's say I have electrons. Let's say that's an electron, and it's moving this time in a... Oh, no, I'll answer this question first. Okay, someone's asking, this is actually a really interesting question. It's worth taking the time on this. Do you think a tutor/teacher would be insulted if I used like a method notation from a friend of mine or another teacher if they are meant to be teaching me, as I'm not too sure? As soon as you even start thinking like that, then the tutoring or teaching space becomes about managing their emotional state. That's not professional service. It is not your job to take care of them. We're the adults. We like, this is a job. We're here to serve you. Right? It's not about what we want. It's not about what we need. It's not about what we like. It's obviously they should intervene if what you're saying is technically wrong or missing the question in some way. But as soon as you start thinking that this is about making them feel good about themselves, then something's gone wrong. Exactly. If they may be insulted. They shouldn't be. That if they feel insulted, they've done something wrong, and especially if they communicate that they're insulted in a not sometimes like in a sort of jokey way, like because I know I have done this before, where sometimes I like, no offense to teachers, I sometimes criticize what teachers say, and like I had a kid, in fact, on this exact topic, he was talking about the split ring commutators in GCSE, and he said that his teacher told him that the function of the split ring commutator was to stop the wires getting twisted, and I went, no, no, no. We're not doing that. And he's like, but it's true. And then he chat GPT'd it, which I hate. And then he was like, no, but look, it's right. I'm like, show me in a mark scheme. Show me in a mark scheme where it's right. So sometimes I will fight back on things that people bring into the room from other educators, but only if I believe they're wrong, not because I don't like them. So yeah, it is not your job to take care of the adults. It's just not your job to take care of the adults. Right. So getting into this. So we've got an electron moving between charged plates. We know what would happen. It would want to move up towards the positive plate, and it would be repelled away from this negative plate. So there's an electric force acting upwards. But what we can do is we can apply a magnetic field to deflect it to keep it moving in a straight line. And we can work out in which direction you would need to apply that magnetic field to keep it moving in a straight line. Because we know that if it's going to be undeflected, we need a magnetic force to completely balance out with that electric force. So we need, first of all, the magnetic force to be acting downwards, and we can use trusty Fleming's left-hand rule to make this happen. But remember, this is an electron. Electron is negative, but current is the flow of positive charge. This trips up so many people. So if the electron is moving right, that is equivalent to current moving left. So if I have, oh, I've really trapped myself here. If I have the force that I want acting down and my middle finger acting to the left, that means the magnetic field must be acting into the plane of the paper. So if I have a magnetic field acting into the plane of the paper, the magnetic force will be acting downwards, the electric force will be acting upwards, and it will move undeflected when the electric force is equal to the magnetic force. The electric force is equal to the electric field strength times the charge of the particle, and that will be equal to the BQV. So the charge cancels. That's helpful. And also, typically, E would be E equals V over D for the electric field strength between parallel plates, where this big V is the voltage and this small v is the speed of the particles. So the speed you get is V over dB. And that is how you select speeds. So I said earlier, when we were talking about this, we were talking about the mass spectrometer, and we said V is fixed. This is how you fix your V. By setting your voltage between parallel plates and using a known magnetic field, you can control the speeds of particles that remain undeflected and make it through a small aperture on the other side. Ask personal question. Way. You seem to be American. That is because I was born in New York and lived there until the age of 11. I have an American dad, a British mom, so we all moved over here when I was 11. So I did all of secondary school and university here. So I may sound American to you. That implies to me you're British. Americans hear me as British, which I find quite fun. I have had my personal favorite was I had someone ask if I was from the Netherlands on the basis that, and this is a direct quote, it doesn't sound like English is your first language. So they thought I'd learned English by watching like American TV, or I went to like international school in Netherlands or something. So yeah, so basically I did all of secondary school here. So I was very used to the UK system. I wasn't prepared for the ESAT. I didn't know that. I wouldn't have been living in states. So although I was a US citizen, it would have been very, very expensive, I think, much more expensive than the UK system. And as soon as I found out what Cambridge was, I knew I wanted to go there. And I knew I wanted to be a scientist, which means I didn't want to do a broad-based liberal arts program. And I hadn't done English in a while, so doing essays was a thing. Like I was just, it was a much smoother ride going through the UK system like I was. So that must have hurt. Honestly, I love the attention. I'm not even gonna lie. I find it entertaining. Like someone's like, "Oh, where are you from?" And I'm like, "Where do you think I'm from?" Because I quite like the game of it. I've had Scotland, Ireland, Wales, West Country. I've had Australia. I don't think I've had. I may have had South Africa. I've had Netherlands. I've had US. I've had everything. It's very entertaining. I did do further math. For the record, I did do further math. I did get 6 A stars. I did further math. I think I was reading your question out loud, which is why I think it was the words came from my mouth that I wasn't doing further math. It was. I just got one more question here. Does F equals BIL sine theta come up in A levels? Yes, it does. Just asking, trying to understand the A level course while being in Scotland. It absolutely does. And I know the Scottish system is different. Y'all have a whole situation happening up there. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like open my Zoom call, because I know I'm meant to be having a student arrive, but like sometimes they're late. So I'm going to keep going. Thank you very much for saying 6 A stars is crazy. I was just that guy, like exams were my sport. I can't really explain it. Like it's crazy to look back on. Bear in mind, hold on, one of those was something called general studies, which was such a fake A level that I didn't do a single lesson in it, and it got discontinued for not being a legit A level. So only 5 of those were like earned. But yeah, like there was math, physics, chemistry. So that 4 was pretty standard. And I just added Latin on top because I really loved my Latin teacher. And I just felt like having some sort of like humanities counterbalance. So when you actually break it down, it's not too extreme. Okay, Edward, what I would recommend, do not throw the system out. If you find them useful for the marking and the exam technique, do that. But this can be a challenge for you to, if you know what they're like, you can work around that. So if you feel like you want to be prepared going in, then you can read ahead. If you know what topics are coming up, you can look on resources online. You've got your textbooks, you've got your worked examples. See how far you can get yourself. And by the way, if you've got your textbooks, worked examples are by far the best way to pick up techniques. If you can just mirror them and then use the tutor to sort of improve the work that you've already done yourself, maybe you'll find that's a way to work with that relationship a bit better with what you know they're able to provide. Cool. So I think that's all I want to talk about when it comes to specifically the left-hand rule, that motor effect, when it comes to the A-level IB syllabus. I'll make sure to get the stream title updated. Edward, my email is always in the description of any video. So if you or a parent want to get in contact and sort of start a thread and ask for more advice, you are very, very welcome to do that. I do have someone else I need to reply to actually in my inbox, so I will absolutely get around to that. In the meantime, I think this is a good place to leave it. because next time I'll go through electromagnetic induction specifically, and that's going to be a whole different kettle of fish. So yeah, thank you all for showing up. And honestly, this is how I love to do a stream. I have the stuff that I'm planning on doing, but I don't just do it. This is why I don't do like prepared YouTube videos that are scripted. I find that boring. I like going live. I like interacting with people. So thank you all for showing up and being cooperative and sort of collaborative in the chat. I also like that you guys chat to each other. So thank you very much. I'm happy. You're happy. Let's keep it going. So I'll see you guys next week. In fact, I think both of my streams next week are very likely to be in the evening. One of them for a demonstration of math techniques, math exam technique, and another one, like I say, going through electromagnetic induction. So keep an eye out for those streams, and I will see you guys next week during half term. In the meantime, have a restful half term, recover your energy, because the next one's going to be a big one. As soon as you hit April, the exams are there and you really feel it. So rest up, make sure you're keeping good track of your energy, no burnout, making sure you can hit the ground running again on the other side. So in the meantime, I will see you guys next week. Thank you very much for joining. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.